So from the late 1800s to about 1965, there were a bunch of schools known as the Mexican American schools. They were dotted all throughout, specifically the American West and Southwest. But these schools more specifically were called Americanized schools, places where children weren't taught how to read, how to write, how to do math, but they were taught how to leave their culture behind. They were taught how to separate themselves from their Mexican heritage and to become more Americanized. In fact, a lot of these schools were called Americanization schools. They were designed to erase the Mexican heritage from society. And this was a deliberate attempt to reshape identities and to reshape mindsets, one child at a time. Now, inside these schools, there was often a feeling of shame. There was made to feel horrible that they were Mexicans. You see, Mexicans were seen as people that were only going to be workers in places like factories and in fields. And they were going to work service level jobs. They were never meant to work in high-tech industries or professional environments. Speaking Spanish in these schools could lead to punishment, whether it was at recess or whether it was in the schoolyard or wherever it was. Imagine speaking Spanish at home, but then going in public and you couldn't say a word of it. That's kind of what these schools did. You see, these schools were training people to be obedient workers. They were, in a way, robbing them of their dignity and of their heritage and of their culture. The buildings themselves, they seem like permanent scars, things that we just couldn't quite get rid of. They were often overcrowded, underfunded. Some of them didn't even have textbooks. Remember, the focus here was on obedience, become more Americanized. Back then, that kind of meant becoming more white. Now, to those in power, this was somehow seen okay. The growing Mexican American population was seen as something to be managed. These schools were a tool. They were a tool to force control and to help kids assimilate into American culture. Well, what they were doing was they were taking vibrant traditions and they were trying to turn them into this quiet compliance. It was discrimination dressed in education. Mexican American families, they weren't broken by this, not in the least. Many of them still organized. They went into communities and they banded together, realizing that they had to protect their culture. They had to protect their language. They realized that the fight for equal education would never fully end. And the courage of these families to fight this fight, it was inspiring. You see the story of strength inside of each of these schools, these Mexican American schools. It's a reminder that identity and culture can't be fully erased from a society. It teaches us that education should never be used as a tool of compliance or to teach obedience. It should be a path forward, an opportunity. Struggle for dignity and equality, it's not just history. It's a part of the culture. It's in our Constitution as Americans. It's who we are. But it's not something that we ever fully really embraced, totally. Not for all Americans. You see, this is a complicated subject. It's a future that we're still building today. This is leading into a bigger conversation that I'm doing over the next few weeks on the Mexican American schools. If you knew anybody who attended these schools, I'd love to talk to them. Please, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation about this. I'm journalist Matt Pierce. I write essays about Texas. Come along with me on the journey. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share.